Hey YouTube, we're back again this week for another video portion of the Daly Dose Sports Podcast. It's a little bit cold this week in Colorado. We're all kind of freezing. Temperatures have been below zero. Got the hoodie on, kind of bundled up, trying to stay warm. You might notice we kind of keep getting new additions to the Daly Dose studio here, and these are all things that I've been given. I haven't bought any of the stuff that you see. This is all stuff that I've been given. We've got now the Daly Dose Oscar Award that was actually given to me for my performance in a supporting role. We have a basketball, got some cars. We got a Colorado Avalanche Zamboni this week. Got a few things. Studio's getting a little bit smaller, I've noticed, but got some things we're going to talk about this week. Hope you're all staying healthy. Hope you're all doing well. Got some news stories that we need to talk about this week, and they're kind of interesting because it seems like the news coming out this week that we're going to discuss kind of, encapsulates this era that we're living in right now absolutely perfectly. So let's jump into that right now. And starting off, Lorraine Groves, who claims her father, Greg Groves, was the master silversmith at Tiffany & Company from 1967 to 1994, and that he was involved in crafting the very first Vince Lombardi trophy that is awarded to the team that wins the Super Bowl, says she is really, really hurt by Tampa Bay Buccaneers quarterback Tom Brady, because if you didn't see it, he actually tossed the trophy last week during the team's victory parade celebration. She said the act was disrespectful. Now, Brady tossed the trophy from the back of a boat that he was on to his teammate Rob Gronkowski, who was on another boat, who caught the trophy quite easily. Lorraine, though, says watching this horrifying event has really upset her. I didn't sleep for the past 2 nights because of this. I'm going to try to say this in Lorraine's voice. I didn't sleep for the past 2 nights because of this. I was that upset because I know the passion that goes into this trophy and how my dad and all his fellow silversmiths are so proud to make this. Now, Groves added she's not really a football fan, but that she watches the Super Bowl every year to see the pride in which players, coaches, and owners lift the NFL's biggest prize. Grow actually went on to whine some more. This has nothing to do with your athletic ability whatsoever. It has everything to do with disrespecting a highly coveted trophy that a lot of work goes into by the silversmiths and all the other team players. I personally would like an apology, not just to me and my family and to the other silversmiths, but to the fans, all the fans out there, all the football fans, the other team players. Well, kids, we have officially run out of problems. When you're complaining about a trophy getting mistreated, we've solved all the problems in the world. A trophy maker's kid is now offended at how a trophy is being handled. Who wants to tell her, by the way, what hockey players do to the Stanley Cup and on the Stanley Cup and in the Stanley Cup? Now, I don't know what Tom Brady plans to do about this whole thing, but if he has a brain in his head, and I think he does, he just acts like he never heard it. Because right now, we have this era of people being offended about literally anything. And that's fine. If you've run out of problems in the world that you need to be offended by trophy treatment or anything that minute in your life, then your life is probably pretty good. But do you know why people keep being offended and people keep saying this stuff? Because they keep getting apologies. If everyone would stop apologizing for silly nonsense, they might shut up. I can tell you this right now. If you get offended by something I say here on the dose, good. Will I be apologizing? No, I won't. I have people write into the dose every once in a while, and they say, hey, I'm offended that you said this, or I didn't like that you said this. And I write back and say, hey, thanks for listening. And that's it. I'm not apologizing. Sometimes I get people comment on maybe a political thing that I said, and they say, I don't agree with that. I don't care for that. I don't like that. You made me mad this week. And I say, yeah, that's good. That's okay. Now, will I be apologizing for those things? No, I won't. And you know what? I hope Tom Brady won't either, because there's no reason to apologize for something that doesn't really matter. Shut up, Lorraine Groves. No one cares about what you think. Speaking of people making things up, I know that in this current era, we need to throw the word racism out every single chance that we get, even when it doesn't really apply. We have another example of that this past week in the world of sports. On Friday, the Houston Texans released their star defensive end, J.J. Watt. They granted his request to be released. He asked them for his release. They said, okay, we'll release you. Now, Watt had 1 year remaining on the contract he signed back in 2014. He was actually owed $17.5 million for this season, but his salary was not guaranteed. So they can cut him and not pay him anything. Now, Watt was drafted by the Houston Texans back in 2011 with the number 11 pick out of Wisconsin, and he became the face of that franchise. He won 3 NFL Defensive Player of the Year awards from 2012 to 2015. He is one of 3 players to win that award 3 times. But now he is free to sign with whatever team he would like. And there seems to be a significant amount of interest around the league in J.J. Watt, obviously. But this story was no sooner announced than we started hearing from some of the so-called experts in the sports media world, and they began saying how Texans quarterback Deshaun Watson, who is black, has asked to be traded, but the Texans won't do that. Meanwhile, white J.J. Watt asked to be released, and the Texans do it, and they do whatever he wants. This is obviously racism, kids. Yeah, except it's not. Because the two situations couldn't be more different. Watt is playing out the end of his contract. And lately, J.J. Watt is hurt every single year. Watson, meanwhile, was just given a 4-year contract worth $156 million. That was just back in September of 2020. That was a few months ago. Like, that's not even a year ago. Remember that? They gave him that big contract, and Deshaun Watson was all happy, and he was saying, I never want to go anywhere else. I want to finish my career as a Houston Texan. But now that's changed, because things have been a little rough in Houston. But Watson is only 25 years old. Meanwhile, J.J. Watt is 31 years old, and he has missed 30-plus games in his career with injuries. So the only other option for Houston, if they're going to move J.J. Watt, would be to try to trade him. And what are you going to get? Like a 5th or a 6th rounder? No one's going to take his contract, so you basically have to cut him. So the Houston Texans are like, well, J.J. Watt's been a good guy. We'll cut him and let him go sign with whoever he wants. They do him that favor, but they also did themselves a favor by taking his contract off the books. Stop acting like this is racial. Also, I hate to bring this up. You know me. I hate to bring things up like this. But I've noticed one very specific thing. The people saying it's racial, most of them are white people. And most of them are old white people. Shocking, I know. Finishing up in sports news that seems to, make less sense every single day these days, the Valparaiso Crusaders will be no more. Remember when Valparaiso won the game in March Madness with Bryce Drew hitting the buzzer beater? And for like a week back in, 1998 or so, we were all cheering for the Valparaiso Crusaders. Well, reports last week say that the team is going to drop their nickname because the term Crusaders is supposedly embraced by hate groups. The school announced that last Thursday. They are dumping the Crusaders mascot and all logos that are associated with that term. Now, there has been a lot of debate about getting rid of that nickname for some time because recently they say that the Ku Klux Klan began using symbols and words, and sometimes they use the word Crusaders. So the school held a vote, and the faculty passed resolutions calling for a new name to be put in place moving forward. Now, I hate this term, but I have to say this term. You hear this term thrown around a lot lately. I hate saying it, but I'm going to say it. Kids, this is the definition of a slippery slope. I mean, unless you're good with changing your mascot every few years, you might have to pick a mascot and just kind of stick with it and ride through some tough times. Because let's say you change your name to something that has no connotations as far as racial or hate group or any of that stuff. Let's say you name yourself the Dolphins. And then the word Dolphins get some bad connotations. And that can't happen. We've seen it. So then I guess you change it. Or what if some hate group starts calling themselves the Tigers, or suddenly a group calling themselves, I don't know, the Fighting Bulldogs storms our nation's capital? Are you just going to change your mascot every single year? Or, and I'm just throwing out ideas here, what if you just said, so we're the Valparaiso Crusaders. We understand that there's a group out there that is calling themselves the Crusaders. That's not us. It has nothing to do with us. And in fact, we shun and we dispute everything that they stand for. But we're the Valparaiso Crusaders, and we're not changing our name for anybody. Because this isn't a bad name. There's nothing wrong with this name. I know in this era of people not being able to think for themselves, we have to make these silly, like theatrical stands that mean nothing at the end of the day. But at some point, as a college, as an institution of higher learning, you might have to, get tough and stand up for yourselves and just say, that's not us. We know who we are and we do what's right. Stop being so soft, I guess is what I'm saying in this goofy era. Okay, YouTube, make sure that you go out and you check out the rest of the podcast. Hey, this week on The Dose, we're actually finishing up the 2020 NFL season. We're taking a look back at the season at every single team, and we're looking at what we might expect from those teams going forward into the offseason and into next year. Plus, we do have to hand out a few NFL season end awards, and we will have our Daly Dose Top 5. We all saw Tampa Bay Buccaneers quarterback Tom Brady just get trashed last week at the Bucs Super Bowl celebration. But here's the question. What was Mr. Brady drinking to get him so intoxicated? Our Daly Dose I-Team did some deep research to get to the bottom of this one. So make sure you go over and you check out the rest of the podcast. I will leave a link here on YouTube in the comments for you. Hope you're all doing well. Hope you're all staying warm. Hope you're all staying healthy. I will see you all next Wednesday. Have a great week.